All right, next up is complex numbers. All right, these problems are done on the fact that you should know by now that the square root of -1 equals I. All right, what we're doing now is that we're taking the square root of negative numbers. All right, I'm going to start out. I'm going to do the hardest one on here first. That way you can pause it after this and you can try the next three on your own. And then if you get stuck, you can just hit play. So I'm going to do this one up in the upper right-hand corner. -216. All right. I'm going to be looking in this for perfect squares. When I say perfect squares, I hope you know now. By now I mean numbers like 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. Numbers that I can take the square root of and get a whole number. All right. This one, just by chance, I happen to know is a multiple of 36. This is going to be 36 times 6. All right. That gives me 216. But this is -216, so I have to remember to multiply it by -1. All right, I've got my perfect square there that I want to work with. So now I bring down my square root. All right. The square root of 36 is going to be 6. I bring that down here. The square root of -1, I know from this fact I've got in the upper right-hand corner, is I. And that leaves 6 behind that I can't do anything with. So my answer for this is 6i times the square root of 6. All right. I would suggest now that you just pause the video and you try these other three by yourself. I'm going to go ahead and do them. All right, -27. All right, looking down through my list over here on the right, I can see that 9 is going to be a factor in here. So, got the square root. It's a negative, so I know it's going to be -1 times that 9 times 3. All right, so I know that the square root of -1 is I, so that comes out. Square root of 9 is 3, and that leaves behind a 3. So the square root of -27 equals 3i times the square root of 3. -18. All right, this is the same scenario. I see a 9 in there. All right, I've got -1 times 9 times 2, right? So I know that the square root of -1 is I. I know that the square root of 9 is 3, and that's going to leave me a 2 behind. So the square root of -18 equals 3i times the square root of 2. All right, I got one more down the lower right-hand corner, -125. Going down my list, 4, 9, 16, 25. I know 25 goes into 125. So, right, I did mean to make this a negative. All right, so it's going to be -1 times 25. 25 times 5 equals 125, so I'm going to make it times 5. Now I'm ready to solve. All right. Square root of -1 is I. Square root of 25 is 5. And that leaves a 5 behind that we can't do anything with. So that's the answer of the square root of 125.